As we approach the end of this series on the warning to churches from the book of Malachi, I find it incredibly ironic that one of the very last things that God said to mankind before Jesus came is not only one of the biggest mistakes the churches is making, but they actually go against this idea of what Malachi is saying to do by turning people away from God. So let's just pick it up right there in chapter 4, verse 5. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the earth with a curse. Now, trying to understand what these verses mean, we kind of need to go back to, what we talked about the last couple episodes was that it's the spirit of Elijah. Elijah the prophet doesn't show up, and he has not shown up, but this has happened. Because it is the spirit of Elijah, it's essentially blown in a trumpet. It's an awakening to warn people about the ways of God, to get them to understand God works a certain way. He's worked the same way from the beginning, the middle, and the end. He doesn't change ever. And there's a small remnant of people trying to tell everybody else that they're doing it wrong, that they're not about their Father's business. They think they are, but they're not. And as we look in the book of Luke, we see this moment in time when John the Baptist is about to show up, and an angel is telling his father, Zacharias, that he's about to have a son. And he says this in Luke 1:17 or 16. And he will turn many of the children of Israel to the Lord their God. He will also go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. So it's about making people prepared for the coming of the Lord. And what they're talking about in Malachi, this is a dual prophecy. It was about the coming of Jesus Christ, but it's also about his second coming. It's about what it specifically says. Before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. That's the second coming that they're referring to, but the church is doing exactly the opposite. They're turning children specifically away from God more than any other entity on the planet. As a matter of fact, the church does a better job turning our youth away from God than anybody else. Nobody else even has to try because the church is doing such a great job at it. This trip that I was on in Wyoming, I was there with several youths, and something about me is I taught for high school for 20 years. I'm definitely in tune with a lot of Christian youths in the world, and there was a day where we were moving some furniture around an old school in Wyoming, and we just started talking, and this conversation went on for hours, and one of the biggest things that came up was there's this fear that as churches and as Christian schools are showing youth God, what they're actually doing is they're turning them away, because there's a point where they become thinkers. And what they're seeing is they're seeing hypocrisy. They're seeing all the things that they said we should be doing, people not doing. And because of that, they are then, or maybe they've been abused by people who say they're Christians, or maybe they've been hurt by people that say they've been Christians, then they blame it all on God is what they do. All that turns, that anger and hate towards people of the church turns to, well, then God must not be real. If this is the way that the church is going to behave, if this is the way that people who so-called Christians are going to behave, they want nothing to do with it. And we're seeing that more than ever before. And, by the way, not only is this the last thing that God had to say to all of mankind before the coming of Jesus, is how important this was, but then when Jesus did come, he specifically said in Matthew 18:5, and whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me, but whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Meaning it's better that you drown. It's better just to wrap a rock around your neck and drown in the depths of the sea than it is to do what it is the church is doing on a daily basis. There are more young men and women turning away from the church because of what they saw as children and teenagers and what they experienced than ever before. The church itself is turning more people away from God than any entity on the planet. And they seem to be picking up steam. They seem to be doing a better job at turning people away from God than ever before, which is exactly the opposite of the very last words God had to all of mankind through a prophet said. It's really pretty brutal what the church is doing. And there's going to be a day where they're going to realize it would have been better to just tie a rock around their neck and drown the depths of the sea than behave the way that they're behaving. That will come to a halting, screeching crash on the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So love to hear your thoughts on all that. Put in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to support this channel with Patreon, that link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, so don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.